It's EV Smalley here with another video in my QB series, ranking my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL 2020 draft. Last time I talked about Joe Burrow. He was my number one quarterback in the 2020 NFL draft. Today I'm talking about Justin Herbert. He is my number two quarterback in this draft. A lot of people probably expect Tua here because in the media he's being touted as, really good. People are ignoring his injury concerns and, whatever. But this isn't Tua's video, so I'm going to go back to talking about Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert was the quarterback for the Oregon Ducks last year, and he spent 4 years there. Started as a true freshman, actually. And stayed through his senior year, passed on the draft last year, and I think that he is an exceptional talent as a quarterback. I think he has some of the biggest arm talent in this draft, up there with Jacob Eason and Jordan Love, but I think he has a lot less of the concerns that come along with those guys. I think that he's more polished. He's a more polished product than them. And it's interesting that people aren't talking about him as a top quarterback this year, because last year, early on in the process, before people were declaring for the draft, a lot of people were expecting him to come out, and people were talking about him being the number one pick. So it's shocking to me that some people have him as, mid first round or late first round. I firmly believe somebody is going to pick him early on. But anyways, some of the things that I appreciate about Justin Herbert is his arm strength. His arm strength is really excellent. He has very good arm strength. It's part of why I think that he's going to be so enticing to NFL franchises. His velocity and power are very good, but he's able to have good touch on his throws. He's not just going to sling it in there necessarily. A lot of guys who can throw with that power, they seem to force their throws, but he throws with more touch, has good accuracy, and I think his accuracy is a big part of why he's gonna go early, because he puts the ball in some insanely tight windows, partially because of his arm strength, but his accuracy and understanding of where people are going to be is coupled with his arm strength makes him an extremely potent passer. And he can make really all the throws that are expected in an NFL offense. A lot of people have concerns about his leadership, which I think is a little unfounded, because it's rumored that he's quiet, but he led an Oregon team as a freshman, to some good records. All 4 of his years, they had good years, and it's a tough conference. The Pac-12 is very competitive, and he kept them at a high level all through his commitment there. And just because he's not a rah-rah leader, doesn't necessarily mean that he can't be a franchise quarterback, somebody that you put your faith in as a franchise quarterback. There's multiple different ways to lead. I think that can be very good as a leadership quality, to be very outspoken, like a Patrick Mahomes, or some guys who are more vocal. But being a quiet guy doesn't necessarily make you a bad leader. There's Eli Manning, a lot of younger quarterbacks coming into the NFL these days aren't aren't huge boisterous guys. If you can lead by example with your work ethic, which I feel like he definitely has, he's worked very hard over at Oregon for 4 years. Um, so I think that's a little overrated. The fact that people think that he's not going to be a good leader. Uh, Both Roethlisberger and Eli Manning aren't known for their leadership qualities, but they've both won 2 Super Bowls. So I think it's a little overrated. As long as he's able to be an example, I think that will be a good leadership style. So I think it's a little weird that people completely write him off as a prospect just because of that. He does have some pretty glaring weaknesses to his game. Not as bad as some of the other strong-armed quarterbacks in this draft, like Jordan Love and Jacob Eason, as I've already mentioned. He has some issues with his field vision and going through his progressions. His progressions are slow. He's slow coming off his first read, and really he doesn't always read the field as well as he can, which can lead to some inconsistencies. Because if a defender makes a good play, then he's screwed because he only goes to a first read, and then if that's covered, he kind of seems to panic, especially if he has pressure. Pressure is something that he does not deal well with, even though he is fairly mobile as a quarterback. He doesn't deal with the pressure well. He tends to flee the pocket and move in such a way that causes him to be sacked unnecessarily, and everything seems to fall apart when he's pressured. His mechanics go to crap. When he's well protected, he delivers some amazing throws because his mechanics are spectacular. When he's given a clean pocket, he can make some exceptionally beautiful throws that are jaw-dropping. He has a good size, 6'6", which is ideal. I didn't mention that earlier when I was talking about some of his pros. But even though Herbert has some rough edges, I think that those can be ironed out fairly simple. He has that high ceiling that you like in a quarterback, but he doesn't take as many risks as people make it out to be. He makes a lot of big time throws, but limits turnover worthy plays to a pretty manageable level. Now, I think he's gonna convert to the NFL style game better than some of the other quarterbacks in here, and I just think it's weird. I can't understand how last year, when he was a junior, less polished, there wasn't a huge difference between his junior year and his senior year in terms of production and some of the things. But he fine-tuned his game a little bit and made some bigger strides. But I just don't understand why he went from potential number 1 overall pick to, even falling out of the top 10. I know that, the top of this draft with Joe Burrow is, very high. He's, a guaranteed number 1 overall pick, and nobody in this draft even slightly compares to him. And, a lot of people are really high on Tua, but he's still a generational talent, if you ask me, as far as his arm strength. I think he's definitely going to go in the top 10. I think NFL teams are going to salivate at, when he goes to the combine. He did great at the Senior Bowl. Showed some of that, put some of the concerns about his consistency and his leadership to rest. And honestly, I see him going pretty quickly in the draft. I think somebody's going to trade up to either number 2 or number 3 and pick him. I think he's the next best quarterback on the board after Joe Burrow. There's been a lot of people thinking that maybe the Dolphins have shown a lot of interest in him. There's been reports of that. Lions, there's been a few reports of that. I don't think that's likely because he's very similar to Matthew Stafford. It's like, why trade Matthew Stafford away when you still have to pay him and pick Justin Herbert? I think it's more likely that they're going to trade back because more picks would be better for them to rebuild and try to make a run to the Super Bowl while they still have Matthew Stafford. But I think it would be best for him if he sat for a year and learned the playbook. I think it would be the best scenario for him would be if a team like the Bucks, Raiders, or Colts even, maybe Saints, fell in love with him and traded up to get him. I think that would be an ideal situation where he's with an offensive-minded coach that can kind of train him up, help him to go through his reads, understand the offense really well, feel comfortable in it so that he can, make up for some of his deficiencies in his game. Yeah. But, yeah, that's my analysis on Justin Herbert. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe because I'm coming out with 8 more videos guaranteed of my top 10 quarterbacks in the 2020 NFL Draft. I hope you all have a good night.